Can we talk for a minute about the stigma around horror movies, which can be a real bitch? Those people just not looking, taking them very seriously, and then can happen for horror comedies. And so people who just, I don't know, maybe don't have the right sense of humor, and or people who just don't respect horror movies at all. And the word horror and the fact that movies like Silence of the Lambs and other movies that have called themselves something else to avoid the stigma. Just like to hear your thoughts, each of you, on that. Go ahead.
I mean, I'll quickly say that, I think you're pointing to what they call elevated horror in a way, right? That we're trying to take the horror genre out of the gutter in a way by making sort of these art house kind of horror films, which I love some of them. I mean, Ari Aster, who did Hereditary and, Midsummer, I mean, those are sort of, in a way, kind of elevated horror. But if you look back to the 70s, I mean, there was a lot of sort of elevated horror. Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, The Omen, those are all elevated horror films. So I think that the whole idea of, the whole horror genre, I got, my dad thought I was crazy, like watching all these slasher films. He's like, what are you doing? Why are you watching this stuff? Why are you watching, movies like My Bloody Valentine and Maniac and Halloween and Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and all that stuff? He couldn't get it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't get it. My teachers thought I was crazy. I was like sitting there at my desk drawing severed heads on my, so I was almost made to feel bad for it.
Yeah.
In a way that there was something wrong. And I'm like, well, I just want to make horror movies. I love horror movies. Like, I didn't see the problem in it. So a lot of, I did get definitely some, pushback a little bit when I was younger, thinking I was just some little, I think my parents thought I was going to be a serial killer at some point when I was growing up. My mom was afraid to come into my bedroom with all my horror stuff, right?
Similar.
But for me, I was able to really distinguish from a young age what was real and what was not. I love practical effects. I'm a huge practical effects fan,
right.
Like Lisa, So for me, it was all about how did they make all this stuff? How do you make these movies? I want to make these movies. How do I do this? So for me as a kid, making horror films or whatever, any movies, I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? But we all have our own path.
Yeah.
There's no direct way of actually making movies because we all have our own path. So as long as you stick to it, and we did, Lisa and I both stuck to our paths, and even though it was extremely difficult, I look back at the years where, I've got like 12 eviction notices because I couldn't pay my rent, so, there's lots of hardships involved too, a lot of struggle. But if you hang in there, the rewards can be really great,
Indeed, you can get a film together that wins a slew of awards, and it's just awesome.
So the horror genre, I think I think there's a place definitely for it. It's been around forever. It's not going away.
No,
people love to be scared.
I think I'm like evolving my sort of impression on that, and part of it, I'm getting older, is part of me doesn't care.
Yeah.
I don't care that I'm not making film for everyone. I cried when Get Out won an Academy Award. Yeah. I almost flipped a table when Parasite did. Like, there's a part of me that is, really excited when we slowly start to get invited to the table.
Yep.
But I'm not making something to be invited to the table. I actually have a lot of respect for people that get genuinely traumatized by horror. It gives them nightmares. They don't get it. Cool. But just maybe asking for the same in return. Do you understand that maybe some people look at them differently? Like Kevin, I am obsessed with like the very first neck slit in Friday the 13th, the original, because like, where was the prosthetic? She was leaning against a tree. How did it happen? Sorry, spoiler alert, people. But it's a 40-year-old film. Get over it. But that's sort of where my passion lies. And there's people that get an adrenaline rush from it, but not in a sick way, in a fun way. It's a genre for certain people. I don't necessarily migrate towards rom-coms. I don't seek them out. I do not make fun of people that do. I detest period films. I don't know why. What is wrong with me? But I don't shame people that like them. And that's all I would ask for, is if you're not into horror, that's fine. But if you're any bored for anything of an award, look at where the skill is. I didn't love the story, but man, the costumes were great. I didn't resonate with this character, but man, that actor was fantastic. You know, I think that's the only thing I would ask. I don't have the expectation that horror is going to be invited to the Academy Awards anytime soon. And I think if we really do, beyond Parasite, which was very worthy, it'll be a performative award. It won't necessarily be the right film that should have made it. Mm-hmm. Because there's good horror out there every year that isn't recognized. And it's unfortunate. It really is. But there's the Nia DaCostas and there's the next generation of people out there that are kicking butt and they're doing it for themselves. And we have an audience. We ourselves are the audience. And I think we're enough to keep each other going. And the rest is, I don't want to take away from the fact that we aren't worthy of it, but the rest is gravy that I'm good without. And if I get it, great. Don't get me wrong. Y'all ever see me on the stage for an Academy Award? I'm not going to be like, I'm too good for this. But it's not something I would expect. As a queer Mexican woman in horror, girl's not expecting to be invited anytime soon.
Yeah. Sadly.
Well, that's what's, I mean, for the Vineyard, I just have to say that, you know, we've got like some really great characters in there. We've got a, you know, gay couple in the script, right? You know, which is a really great thing to have. I mean, you know, that's what I love about the diversity of horror too. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of like LGBTQ plus people are working in the horror genre. I mean, it's been, you know, I mean, we're just a bunch of twisted fuckers.
If I'm not wrong, we have over 50% of our above the line people in who helped make Puppet Killer are LGBTQ plus representing. So I think we're sidetracking here, but I think we're rushed. Is also to, like you said, with representation really matters for me. I'm really angry and loud a lot of the time. Maybe not angry. I think that was the wrong word that other people have actually said to me enough that I've accidentally used that terminology. I'm not loud. I'm opinionated. I'm passionate, right? I think too, even before we're invited to the table, we have a responsibility to look at the small table we're at and see if we can pull in a few more chairs, you know? So that's been a great thing for me. And when I looked at the Vineyard or other things, and you look at the casting we did in Puppet Killer, the other things that I'm fighting for, I might have just a tiny little voice, but that voice can make a little bit of a difference. And I can say, this isn't, you know, I need this representation and I need this. And,
well, you know, making films is such a huge voice.
Yeah. And what a great platform and opportunity. And I think one of the best things about horror is that it has always been political. It has always had a message. It has always been powerful and strong. And sometimes they just say it, or we teach that message in a way, or we wrap it up in a story that maybe a man, I don't know, sorry to pick on you men, might not have wanted to read that book about diversity, but maybe he's going to watch a horror movie that slips that story in. And that ability is something that we've always done, you know, and I think social responsibility, that's something I take quite seriously in my role. And to have writers like Kevin, who I can say, you know, this draft from Tony, something that was so important to me was this love story. And I want to rip some people's fucking hearts out. And yeah, they both happen to be men, but that doesn't matter. You know, it's that this love story should be represented just as beautifully as any straight love story is. Mm-hmm. And I don't want them to be token gays. I just want them to happen to be gay. And I mean, how lucky am I to have Kevin? I don't have to explain that to Kevin, but you know, that's important. That's important to both of us. Wow, we sidetracked. Sorry, let's go.
It leads me into, is there anything you would like to say about, because you are active very much in creating awareness and advocating for change in film and horror film, on set in particular. We talked about diversity. How about some of the sexual and general harassment stuff that has been going on the last couple of years? It's been going on forever, but I mean, has been coming to the surface so much more. I didn't know if there was anything you wanted to say about that, either of you. I mean, that's a big
I mean, you know, the film industry, I mean, I've been in it for a long time, like Lisa, and, you know, I mean, it's an interesting industry to work in. I mean, because you're dealing with all these different creatives, you know, very intense people, you know, a lot of crazy people I've run, you know, over the years, you know, so it's a very interesting world to play in. So, you know, I think there's definitely room for a lot of changes, you know, for sure, you know, and want to be part of that as well, you know, creating more diversity in horror. Yeah, I could talk more about it, but I'll let Lisa sort of take the reign here.
Yeah, I mean, that's such an open-ended thing. I don't want to, take it too much, but I think, again, it's going to come down to responsibility. And I think it's really unfortunate that the shoulders it lies on are those of us that are at most risk of losing our jobs for using our voices. And that's scary. And I respect everyone for whatever they bring. And I know that what I do isn't for everyone. I really do put myself out there, and I have lost job opportunities, and I have dealt with people's perceptions of who I must be to work with because I'm so opinionated, or whatever the words might be. But I do think that's where it starts. It starts with those of us that really aren't at the top, because a lot of people up there aren't making the decisions, and they're not in an uncomfortable position where they're even seeing what is happening. But it's for us to say, on the next film, I'm going to make sure there's more dialogue. I'm going to make sure there's an intimacy coordinate, or whatever the new terminology is for that person, that's so great that person's been created. We've had sex scenes and not had people whose job it was to make sure that they were safe and comfortable before. So it's about what can I do? What awareness can I bring? And also, how can I support people that have been through it before? And all of that takes time. It takes change. It takes education. It takes us using our voice. It takes a lot of allies. I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but if you're it's typically a white male, but if you're any human of any gender, representation, or ethnicity, and you say, well, I've never experienced that, I don't know what they're talking about, that's great. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. What is it like to make space for someone who has, and think, how can I show up differently for them? How can I make them feel safe to share that story with me? How can I look at the people I hang out with, and when I hear something, say, hey man, maybe that behavior is not cool anymore. And it's okay if you behaved in a way 10, 15 years ago that's different now, and you're educated to go, shit, I didn't know when I catcalled a woman from a construction site that I was actually making her not want to leave the house at night. That's okay. I've made jokes at stand-up and in improv that are totally inappropriate, that I now can see. And I can go, okay, great. That's a learning opportunity for me. Mm-hmm. Growth. We don't have to be perfect. I don't think we have to be canceled for who we were 10, 15 years ago, but there's a difference between cancel culture and accountability. Gina Carano is who she is today, and that's why I don't want to support her product. J.J. Abrams was an asshole 20 years ago or 15 years ago or whenever the fuck he made those tweets, and he came out publicly before anyone else called him out on it, and he said, man, I was an asshole. Sorry, I meant paraphrasing. Yes. So I think there's a big difference there, and I think we need to give safety for change, and we have to give people that space. If they're living in fear about something they did 10 or 15 years ago, they're not going to have the chance to grow because they're scared they're going to get attacked. But if we give them the birth of forgiveness and growth, and we say, yeah, man, you did a shitty thing, but society was different, and we are all going to grow together, and so I forgive you. That's I think where we're going to get a whole bunch of change. That's right. But not easy. So it's about us using our voice in a way that doesn't freak people out, and it's about other people allowing just a little bit.
Yeah, and leading by example.
Leading by example and not attacking. Mm-hmm. Like I said, it's very different if you're going to do something today than it was before. And I want to make a space for people to show up, including myself, to say I could have been better back then, and that's okay. How am I better moving forward? What better example can I give?
Absolutely. No, absolutely everyone, I think, can think of an instance years ago in which they have made an error in judgment of some sort. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, and being forgiving of that is important, but actually learning from it is even more so. So, yeah. I mean, otherwise you're just going to be the same asshole you were 15 years ago.
And those are the people I don't have time for, right? But I'm willing to let everyone show up and figure out who they are.
Yeah. Cool. Now, Women in Horror Month, there's been a bit of a thing with that. Women in Horror Month being in February, which is also Black History Month. And this past February, that just, I don't know, shit hit the fan. It was... Girl,
I threw the shit. You're just being real polite.
What are your thoughts on that? Moving it to March, meaning not moving Black History Month, but moving Women in Horror Month, and so, for people who want to do that, what was the whole idea behind that? Where are you with that now? I don't know.
Man. Woo! I'm a very passionate person.
Yes.
And that's something that I look back on and I'm like, oh, girl, you just leapt, ran, jumped, all of the things at the same time with no regret. And that, I didn't have a plan there. It wasn't calculated, but what I got I got sick of it. Number one, women in horror, great. I love it. Oh my gosh, we need to represent each other. We need to hold each other up. I loved it at the beginning. Speaking of growth, when I first became a quote unquote woman in horror, I loved it for a month. I got a butt ton of, I'm trying sorry not to swear. I don't think I've ever said butt ton before.
Don't worry about it.
I had a whole swag of interviews, you know, things that I could accumulate for when I wanted to get my O1, like business wise, it made a lot of sense. And I was into it. I exploited it. I loved it. And then a couple of years in, I started really looking a little differently. And I was like, wait a minute, it's Black History Month. Started feeling a little icky. Started listening more. Started listening to women in color in horror. Started listening to the impact it had on them. I started hearing mumblings, you know, and then I started getting a little louder. My friends started getting a little louder. And then every year it happened again. And everyone was like, yeah, but you know what? I need the publicity. I need the press. I'm a woman in horror. And regardless of what I represent as, this is the 1 month a year I get it. And I was like, I get that. I do. I get it. It's a risk. But if we don't change, we're not going to change. And so a bunch of us just stopped participating. And that felt weird because I wasn't supporting these great journalists that were holding us up. And I was affecting my career, but it was like this passive way that I could do it. And passive isn't enough. And so this year, I don't know, there was, you know what? It was a rough year. You know, the Black Lives Matter movement, which was certainly not born in 2020, but got a lot more traction and the attention it deserved. I think it was a time where no one had any more fucks to give. And I had no more fucks to give. I am a biracial queer woman in a society that never accepted me, even when I represent white, which I do. So I can't imagine what anyone else is going through. Right. And I just had enough. And I was talking to some people behind, and I wanted to do it the way Lisa does it. I want to poll people. I want to get everyone involved. I want to make sure everyone has a voice and feels so honored. And a couple of my POC friends came to me and they said, great, but here's the problem. If you say loudly as a white woman to other white women, we're going to lose the thing you want that benefits your career because these Black people over here already have a month. Your intention might be great, but what they're going to hear is these Black people they're the reason that there's a problem here. And I argued with them. I did. I argued. I said, that's not what I'm doing at all. I'm a good person. I'm a good white ally. But they kept talking and I went, oh my God, what do you say? You say these things. So I just shut up and I listened. And I said, okay, I disagree. That's not my intention. But if you're telling me that's how you will be treated, I have to hear you. So he said, well, then what do you want me to do? And they said, we just want you to move it. Enough of this voting, enough of this bullshit. We just want you to move it. Enough people want to do it. Just move it. And so I just went on the page and I was like, we're moving it. Who's moving it? We are. But that was it, you know? And what I did, I knew I was going to step on a lot of toes because a couple days earlier, I went onto the site. Number one, I think a part of my problem, a part of my problem was it was an organization, not a movement. I didn't agree with that. I didn't agree that there was a few people, quote unquote, in charge, in my opinion, misrepresenting what that became. What they started it as was great. But I think it was misrepresented when these few people were manipulating subconsciously or not. I don't think they originally or maybe ever had a bad intent, that when they use their voice, they're manipulating the opinions of these women. And again, I don't think they were coming from a bad place, but I think what this product became was a product and an organization. So I didn't like that. And I came on first and I said, hey guys, I think it's time we move. I don't actually remember all of this, but I know it's out there in social media if anyone wants to go and fact check me, but I think it's time we move. And I think it's time we stop talking about it. And I think we've got to give this space for these people. Let's do it. Let's do it. Again, my white mentality came out of how I was going to do it. And I was going to, find out what month everyone wanted. And again, I was asked to just move it. So I did. I went on and I said, everyone who was excited to move. You can't move, stay. Good for you. I honor and I hold all of you up, but this is something that just needs to happen. And then it exploded and it became a nasty war and everyone had an opinion and a side. And you know what? It wasn't great. I know that I took a lot of the fire for it, but what a lesson for me. What a lesson when these beautiful humans, there was, I had some biracial friends and some people of color and all of these people showing up and saying, Lisa, not asking me to do it, but saying, if we do it in this capacity, we'll take the shrapnel. And I didn't believe them. And when I took the shrapnel as a white ally, I was like, fuck. can you imagine what they would have taken?
Right.
So humbling to have been wrong. Wouldn't change it for the world. And it blew up in the sense that, you know, there is no longer Women in Horror Month, but what I'll encourage people to get educated about is there's still the same organizers running the same organization. And you know what they did? They changed a word. Now it's the Women in Horror movement, ran by the same people using the same social media. And to me, I think that's still insincere. If you're going to give the power back to the people, which is what they said, no more movement. People contacted me behind the scenes. Lisa, you run the next one. You're the leader next. And I was like, that is the opposite of what I'm trying to do. I want to give the power back to the women to be honored and respected whenever they want, and to really shut the fuck up and let POCs have their fucking time. And that's, I mean, if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. People have been scared to ask me about it.
Yeah.
So I'm here to talk. You know, in a nutshell, that's what happened. And I'm really glad for the few people that came up at me and said, I'm going to give you the real truth about why what you want to do won't work.
Right.
And they were right. They were right. And it took a minute to remember that our job as white allies is to shut the fuck up. And if we don't agree, it's because we don't know.
Yeah.
It's because we haven't experienced what they're telling us, and to shut up and listen and say, okay, I still don't get it, but if you're telling me, I have to accept that that's true.
That's just a really cool lesson to pass on. And I just wanted to hear about it encapsulated. So for people to learn from your experience too, as well, and, you know, what happened there and why. And so Women in Horror Month is no more. Is that like,
I can't really speak for the collective, and I think that's where part of my frustration came from.
Yeah,
everyone should be able to have what they have. Number one, we can't. I mean, we can,
but
I don't want to take any focus from a marginalized group, any marginalized group. It's already really weird that Black History Month is in February, the shortest month out there, you know? And I know the rationale as to why I couldn't move was originally it was because of the menstrual cycle or some bullshit like that. Number one, not all female representing people have menstrual cycles. I think it's ridiculous. It's not the thing about me I personally celebrate. And if that's what you celebrate as a woman, great. But it's not hard to move it. And that's, I think, where we get caught. I think that's a big lesson too, is it's always hard because we make it big, and my thing was like, it's not hard. We just move it. And that's where it came down to. It was like, fuck it. If no one's going to move it. And what I realized is no one was going to do it. No one was going to bite the bullet. No one was going to be the bad guy. So I was like, I'll fucking do it. But I don't think it's negative to have a month that holds us up. I never asked to blow that up.
right.
But what I did say is, you know, it's not appropriate to take this focus. And, you know, if it changes into Women in Horror movement, great. For me, I've just sort of walked away. I've just walked away. I love it when people give me an interview because I love talking. I love my projects. I love holding up the people like Kevin and the other people that have helped me create. But I think right now the dust needs to settle.
Yep.
And no one should be in charge of women in horror rising up. We should all take a solo individual responsibility to go, who are 5 women I look up to? I'm going to reach out to them and see if they have any advice for me. And who are 5 people that I see that are struggling, that maybe haven't had my experiences? Maybe I can reach out to them and tell them a couple things I've learned so they don't make my mistakes. Maybe that's the new fucking movement. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. So we will just see what women do, basically.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, people got to stop looking at me like I'm.
What are you going to do, Lisa?
Yeah. What are we doing? Where are we going? I got my pitchfork. I'm like, I know that's how it looked. And girl got a little angry at the end. She did. But you know, I'm not here to lead the next rebellion. I'm just here to empower and to, you know,
lift people up.
To speak loudly.
Right?
Right.
Oh, I thought you said speak loudly, like as in that's what I'm doing. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, lift people up in the industry. I mean, I get a lot of young writers saying, hey, Cav, you know, I want to get into screenwriting. You know, like, I always take time to like answer questions and meet with them. And, you know, I was there, you know, I used to think like, well, when am I going to be on the other side of the table? You know, and it's like, you know, if, you know, if we're lucky to be in a position where, you know, we can reach out to other people and, you know, younger people who are struggling and, you know, wanting to have a voice and tell stories. you know, we're all storytellers and everyone has a story to tell.
And I think I can only speak from my experience as a woman, but I think that there's a very interesting thing that has been going on for generations and generations and probably centuries and centuries, where we are raised very young to be taught that we are in competition with each other.
Yeah.
And the mean girl mentality in the movies we watch, and the movies girls idolize, pit women against each other. And so it's ingrained in us almost subconsciously that we are in competition with the pretty girl or the smart girl, or we're going to be a bully, or whatever role it is that the society has sort of, you know, put into our brain. And there's an expectation. And I think there's some deprogramming that needs to happen. And, you know, I can experience it in the tiny bubble of women in horror that, you know, it was very interesting to sort of have even people with good intention almost be like, so which one of you guys is going to make it? It's like, excuse me. And especially like, let's look at me and Gigi, one of my dear friends. We are both Latinx female horror directors from Vancouver, Canada. That's a very specific niche. We're not in competition. You know, we text each other almost daily. We got each other's backs. We cry on each other's shoulders. We create opportunity, you know, and that's, I think, where a feminist movement can get more power than women ever understand, is not by getting, that was another ironic thing for me, was the amount of like vitriol that came at me. It was like, man, if you took that energy to hold up another woman, doesn't have to be me, we would be unstoppable, right? So reforming what we've been told and finding that energy instead, and finding something positive. I don't think there's not enough room for us at the table. I don't think we've been invited. I think there's some reprogramming at the top all the way down that needs to happen, you know, but it's just got to start happening. And if they're not opening the door, kick the door, but then put a little fucking rock in it, so the next girl behind you doesn't have to kick the door, right? Like, you can be running, you could not have the time and energy to like teach her everything, but you can shove a brick in there, you know, like just try to make it a little easier for the next person. And, you know, Shonda Rhimes talks about the fact that when she broke the glass ceiling, everyone asked her about it. And she said, when she broke the glass ceiling, it was so cracked by so many women that led before her, she barely felt it, you know? And that was so inspiring to me. And I was like, yeah, it's a movement. And we have the power to change the world. We could fucking take over everything if we put the energy into honoring each other that we do into some of the other shit.
What is your favorite regular horror movie of all time, and why?
Oh God.
I read these questions. I don't have answers for half of them. I'll save you time. I've never read a horror book. I need to. I went, oh my God, Kevin can teach us that because he has a lot of that. Horror movie will change on a daily basis, but I'm going to give you Evil Dead 2. I'm going to give you Evil Dead 2 is probably one of the most inspiring from beginning to end making ofs with Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi that really changed my life.
Awesome. Kevin?
Oh boy. I mean, I mean, I have so many favorite horror movies. I mean, I grew up in the 70s, right? I watched all those ones. So for me, like really like, I mean, Rosemary's Baby, it was one of my all-time favorites. Carrie, of course, Halloween, which is, you know, almost cliche.
I know, we could say like 100.
You know, so I mean, I really love all those sort of what they call the sort of the slow burn sort of horror movies as well, you know. I don't know. I mean, I think it's hard one. I mean, my top 5 would probably be like The Omen, Carrie, Rosemary's Baby, Halloween, and I love Black Christmas too. Oh, and My Bloody Valentine.
Right. Okay, Kevin, she's not going to be that. We got to rapid fire these. She's got a whole bunch of questions and we got 10 minutes left.
Penny, is there a horror novel or author, Kevin, that's fave of yours?
Stephen King.
Stephen King.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say that too, because it and all of those things really influenced me, but they influenced me in movies. I didn't really read his books.
Well, there's my those are all my Stephen King books on.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
All right. So did you have any Canadian horror movie faves? Canadian.
My Bloody Valentine.
I knew we were both going to say that. Yes. I just did some research before I came on here with you because I was like, you know what? I didn't know Ravenous was a Canadian movie. Oh, damn, that's a good movie. I saw it in the theater because I've always been weird. So Ravenous came out well over 20 years ago.
Is great.
Yeah.
And I remember people getting up and leaving the theater. and being like, okay. Also, I wanted to say Dale and Tucker versus Evil, one of the greatest comedy horrors of all time, is a Canadian film, and one I haven't seen yet, but I've seen so much online. I want to see. Slacks. Here for it. It's Canadian, seems to be doing well. Haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's been a lot of, I mean, Canada has made so many great horror films. I mean, Black Christmas, Terror Train, Happy Birthday to Me, My Bloody Valentine, Visiting Hours.
We're both
Rituals.
obsessed with My Bloody Valentine. There's there's so many.
Ginger Snaps, Pen.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we've contributed a lot for sure.
Yes, we have. So people just don't realize it, but it's good to
Yeah.
have it out here. Now, how about favorite B movies specifically? And if you have a Canadian B movie to mention, that's great. If not, yeah. B movies.
I think I love them all. I'm going to go with Dead Alive for just today. My answer will change no matter what fucking mood I'm in.
Awesome.
But I'm going to go with Dead Alive right now.
That actually just reminded me of Brain Damage. Have you seen Brain Damage?
No.
Oh
Brain Dead too. I'm sorry. No, there's
Brain Dead.
Stop.
Okay. Last question then. What is your Halloween ritual? As this is coming out during the 13 days.
Oh.
Halloween ritual. What do you do every Halloween or have done in the past? Because they've changed for you a lot right now.
Yeah, let's not talk about this year.
Yeah.
I generally go to the P&E, which is our amusement park here in Vancouver, and they have Fright Nights, which is they set up like 10 haunted houses, and I love going there with my friends and going through all the haunted houses. It's a lot of fun, so we do that. And then also a friend of mine, we also do a fundraiser. We've been doing a fundraiser for the SPCA every year, raising money for kitties and dogs. So we do an annual Halloween fundraiser. I've been doing that for the last several years. But yeah, no, I mean, Halloween's fun. And then I just like to stay home and watch a horror movie.
Of course. Yeah, that would definitely. Lisa?
Yeah.
I don't really have a Halloween ritual, because I think my whole life is like, when you go to the stores at Halloween and they're selling Halloween decorations, like I'm buying shit for my house. Like all of my china and good plates are covered in skulls. The table I have right now is a skull lace tablecloth. There's just an aesthetic that appeals to me. And so there's not much different to my home if I was to put up Halloween decorations.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't like when people ring my doorbell and my dog barks all day. So I put like bowls of candy out and I'm like, live your best life. Let me know when the bowl is empty. I'm the same as Kevin. I'm watching horror movies. I watch horror movies 5 out of 7 days a week. So I don't think, I've been in Fright Rights. Man, I talk a big game. Shit my pants sometimes, depending on the day. Why I like watching horrors is I understand the formula. I don't get scared a lot. I don't know when someone's going to jump out at me at a horror, at a haunt, and I have been known to position children in front of me.
Yeah, I like horror movies. I don't like jump scares. I can find them or see them coming often in a horror movie, so that's fine. But in real life, I agree. Don't jump out at me.
And one of the reasons I don't like suspense movies, I don't like high suspense where I'm sitting there for 4 or 5 minutes and don't know. I actually don't enjoy that as well, because I'm like, just tell me.
See,
tell me what happens.
I like that. I love that. Like this long suspense. I'm like, oh, give me more.
And I'm like, that was great, but I'm not doing it again. I love it after. I'm like, what a great movie. During.
Oh yeah, no, I like lots of foreplay in horror movies.
Very cool. Thank you. Oh, hello.
Aw.
When I get excited and animated, he thinks something's wrong.
Oh, I see. My Chihuahua was popping up actually just there. Just her head was rising during the interview. If you watch this playback, you'll see.
I love that.
If my cat was awake, I'd show you my cat.
We're all animal lovers.
Her name's Annie. She's named after Annie from Misery.
Oh, I love it. This is
Annie
Gizmo.
Wilkes in Misery because she's trying to kill me.
And that's Gizmo from Gremlins.
Oh, yeah. It's those ears.
And mine's Raxel from a television series like Dark Shadows that was done in Canada, though, actually.
Oh, I love it. That's great.
So, and well, Jack, he's Jacoby, but you can take Jack from The Shining or something. That's my cat. So, you know.
Perfect.
Anyway, thank you so much, both of you, for talking
Thank you.
today. It was so great. And yeah, I will let you know when this is out. And
it was nice chatting with you too, Reagan.
This energy, I'm here for it. I don't do it enough. I hide in my house alone with my dog. So getting to talk about horror and see your guys' faces was a joy. So thank you.
Yeah, so keep an eye out for Puppet Killer coming up this summer. And also keep your ear to the ground with the Vineyard.
Yeah, fingers crossed we get that sucker going.
Cool.